Voilà. Good morning, Kelly. How are you?
Hi, good morning. I'm fine. Finally, some sun shining, so can only make you happy.
Okay. I'm Tom Commeine, President of PSA Belgium 2023, and this is Time to Talk. And today I'm interviewing Kelly Craeye, who is a new member this time. In the previous editions of our Time to Talk, I interviewed some long-standing members of our organization, and this time I'm so happy to interview a new member, somebody who joined the organization only earlier this year, somewhere January, February, I guess, and we are now May. So, Kelly, please introduce yourself. Who are you?
Yes.
What are you doing? And how did you join PSA finally?
Yeah. Well, I'm Kelly, 43 years old. Today I work as partner for European Institute for Sales as an independent trainer, consultant, coach. Long time ago, I started my career at Barry Callebaut, having a background of languages, French and German, and then an MBA in international marketing in Germany. Started my career in the production world of Barry Callebaut, learned a lot, was a great experience. Had the opportunity to start working at Unilever in the marketing team of Lipton. I was somebody who said, never in my life I will do sales. One day there was a huge reorganization at Unilever, and I got the opportunity to start working in sales as a key account manager in the food solutions department. And biggest part of my career, I stayed in sales actually. So I did a few years sales, I did some category management, had the opportunity to do some more marketing for the ice cream department, the Ola, as we call it in Belgium. And then there was again a huge reorganization, and I decided to move on in sales. And I started working for a Spanish company, which was called Naltra, which makes a lot of chocolate products worldwide, mainly private label, also brands, thinking at a Cadbury spread, the Ovomaltine spread, and the BCL spread. And there I worked on European level in sales. Mainly concept selling, so really working a lot on projects, having a lot of marketing thinking in the sales also. Cadbury, for example, I used to work a lot with the marketing director of Hein Daniels, who had the license of the whole Cadbury spread. And this is what I really liked, because I'm not the kind of person for the hard selling. I really love to work on long term, to develop together with customers and to do a lot of concept selling. There too, I had experienced reorganization, and then they asked me to mainly work on the retail business for Germany and Holland. So for about 2 years, I worked on the German business, and on the Holland, the Dutch business was a great experience too. But what I missed there is really the concept selling, the more long-term thinking, really the project working. And then I moved to a smaller company in frozen products, as it was closer at home. Still working on international level in sales, doing the German market, working a lot on developments. At a certain moment, I decided to take a sabbatical, because I was a bit looking at, okay, what am I going to do? I've learned a lot of things. I had the possibility to work for great companies, to gain a lot of experience. Then I took a sabbatical. We traveled a lot, traveled, for example, 2 months to Australia with my husband and our 2 little kids at that time. I did a yoga retreat in Norway, some other trips. It was a great experience. And for a long time already, I really was interested in knowing more about training people, coaching, mentoring. So I had a great coaching trajectory with Els van Laken, where I learned a lot about different types of coaching, where I also went through a personal process. So I learned a lot also about myself, helped me to gain more experience on several things. I met somebody then from Dana Ketels, who works on body language, and I was very triggered about that. And I was thinking, okay, what can I do with my experience in the international company world, with the sales, some marketing, some production background, and my passion and interest for working with people, training, speaking. And then I thought, okay, body language might be very interesting to get to know more about it. So I had the whole training at the Center for Body Language about body language. And then I was looking and okay, how am I going to start as an independent? But there was COVID, as we all know, and my daughter became ill, so then I had to take care of her in that year. And then afterwards, okay, everything finally went well. It was a tough year, but there was the COVID. It was my daughter. But again, it's a way to learn about yourself, about resilience. I learned a lot about the resilience of a child and how we can learn a lot as an adult from our kids, what we sometimes forget. And then I started working as an independent, worked as a trainer for a Dutch company, had great experiences, could work with several companies. And then, yeah, European Institute for Sales passed my way because I had stopped with working with the Dutch company as I was looking for myself and the way of working. And I felt like, okay, this is not really my way of working. I was looking for more variation because we were mainly working on a methodology. And I was looking for more a mix of consulting people, coaching people, training people. And sometimes things come together when you don't expect it. People say coincidence doesn't exist. I believe it more and more. And I became partner at European Institute for Sales last year. What do we do there? Well, we help a lot of companies in everything which is what we call today commercial excellence. Can be on one way, really supporting in transformation processes on commercial change, making them future-proof in sales, and also in marketing, because I don't think it's a secret anymore, and more companies are getting aware of it. There is really an important link between sales and marketing. They shouldn't be working separately anymore. It's really important that sales and marketing is really working together. So we work on marketing and on sales. We do a lot of in-company projects. That's what I mainly do, and that's what I love the most, working as an in-company trainer. Which mostly is as a whole tragic. It's not only just training, it's also coaching, management, the people who are in the training, doing some consulting and working again on long term, which is something I always loved also in my job as a salesperson, working on long term, building relationships and seeing how people are growing. And at the same time, I constantly grow myself. Because my vision is that when I am in front of a group, speaking, training people, I always learn from every group every time again. It's not because I'm standing in front that I have all knowledge. So this is that second part, really the whole in-company training and the whole trajects, what I mostly do. Next to that, we do also consulting with interim managers where needed, but very often the elements are linked within one project. And we do also have some open trainings because we work together with professors. European Institute for Sales comes from the Netherlands, was grounded in the 90s. In fact, first it was what we call ISAM. It's Institute for Sales and Account Management, which was founded in the early 90s by some professors at the Erasmus University in Rotterdam, because they are looking for a kind of a post-sales training after university. About 10 years ago, it was privatized and it was called European Institute for Sales. Now, very new news, but it has been communicated meanwhile on LinkedIn. The name has changed again from European Institute for Sales to ISAM, but now it's Institute for Sales and Marketing, with even more focus on what we're really doing and matching the whole marketing and sales story in one part, actually, in the companies. And what differentiates us is mainly that we still have that scientific fundament, I would say. We still work together with some professors. In Holland, we have trajects of 8 days in the open trainings, where we have several professors who are specialized in value-based selling, in the future-proof sales, who are doing a lot of research. But at the same time, we work with a lot of people who really work in the company world, standing with the feet in the sand, as we say sometimes, and that what differentiates us, that we have that unique mix of that scientific fundament, and then also a lot of people having the experience from having really worked in the companies. The professors, they do also consulting jobs and projects in companies, but they have much more their academic background. So that's a bit what we are doing and what I am doing today.
Okay, sounds fascinating. Thank you for this very clear introduction. I want to jump back in what you said earlier. I heard you mentioning a daughter. Seems like you
Yes.
have kids.
I have 2 kids.
You have
I
two
have a
kids.
son also. Yes.
Okay, so you are a career woman and a mama. How
Yeah.
did you manage to juggle those? Uh,
I think it's a struggle that many women have, and let's say not only women, definitely men also, is constantly finding the balance in being there for the family, finding your way in what you're doing. For me now, building more and more my business, finding my way in being independent, building my network. Yeah, and of course, nobody is perfect. Even if I've seen a lot of and read a lot about coaching, I've been through a personal process. I also have my moments where I think, oh my God, no, I don't see it anymore. But the power is in making that mind switch. And because we all know it's all here in the mind. And yes, I have also my moments where I'm into the emotion. But the most important is that allowing yourself to be in the emotion, but especially to get out of it again and then say, okay, let's move on. But the importance of your family is, yeah, I must say, after my daughter has been ill, and last year we had a tough summer with my boy because he had a bleeding in the brain. My daughter had a chemo and cortisone therapy in 2020. She's now 8. My son is now 9. So they both went to some tough processes when talking about health. And as a mom, you would love to take it all with you and you wish you had everything, but you can't. But it makes you realize again how important it is to enjoy life every day, even if we have days where you don't manage. We're just human beings. Nobody is perfect, neither am I. And realizing again the importance of having the love of a family. Yeah, my family is the most important for me. So I used to work a lot. I've been working hours, nights, days, weekends. If needed, I will do that, but then it's with the passion, with what I really want, and not anymore because it has to be for a boss who decided that now suddenly everything had to be done yesterday, because I realized that your time is so precious. So,
to me, that's a golden nugget you have just shared because when I talk with youngsters, mostly they're afraid of starting families these days. They're afraid of combining jobs with families. They're afraid of when they have a job and they have a family, they think they have no time for social life anymore, for organizations such as PSA Belgium or other organizations, Junior Chamber International, for example, as you know, that I'm also
yeah.
quite active in. And lots of people these days seems to not to dare to step up their life and to uh, embrace life and live it at the fullest, you know. While it is possible to have all of it, you don't have to.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're confronted with health issues, it's like, as we say, wham into the face again. And
Yeah.
still, you know it, and still you have your moments where, yeah, that's fine. It's what I also say, also in my trainings. Nobody's perfect. It's not because I'm claiming it here or explaining it or giving you the insights that I am perfect and I do everything as it should be. No, of course. But the most important thing is, I think, is that you keep on learning. I often say, I hope that I stop learning when I'm, let's say, 99 and a half, and I feel like I had a good life. I learned a lot. I moved up in my levels of consciousness, and yeah, it has been okay. But of course, nobody knows what will happen tomorrow.
Okay. You already mentioned I would never go into sales, and then suddenly the opportunity came there, and you did
Yeah.
make the choice to go into sales. My most interesting question is, what was in your mind that you said, I will never go into sales? What
Yeah.
prejudgments did you have about the profession of sales?
Very fair question. And I think, let's be honest, for many people, sales is still a dirty word. True. And for me, I felt like sales was at that time, no, sales, I thought marketing is the wow. And sales, that's pushing and getting no and whatever. But as said, then one day I had to start as a key account manager in what they called at Unilever Food Solutions a cowboy world. And it was having to do negotiations with bigger companies, international companies, finding out my way. Believe me, I had sleepless nights. I worked late. For a year, my husband worked as a consultant abroad, so I was home alone in the week. Didn't have kids yet, so the only thing I did was working. But so in the beginning, as said, I had a lot of assumptions like, oh, it will be tough, they will not like me, I will not be able to sell. But at the same time, I really learned for myself, because I have to make the side note, I didn't have any training in the first years. It really was learning by doing, trusting on my feeling, making mistakes, learning from it. But the more and more I said to myself, it's also a person at the other side of the table who has his or her goal, who wants to achieve something. And from my own, I was more and more thinking, okay, it's we together against something, we both need something, and not you against me. It's a bit the impression I had in the beginning, just a wrong assumption. But what I really learned is that together you grow. And that's why I liked sales more and more, because you learn from each other. But the great thing is when you can develop things together where you both get better off, and especially on long term. And you learn, at least I do, that's how I always saw it. I always said, I always learn from the people around me. I had tough buyers, I had great clients, I had difficult ones, but in fact, I learned from all of them. And that's what inspires me. So now I say also sometimes in my trainings, especially when I train people who are not really in the sales, but who also get what we call the commercial skills, or training them a bit on a commercial mindset, because that I also have done already. I work with groups in the insurance world, with buyers, training them on some commercial mindsets. And I say, in fact, we sell so much, but we don't like the word sell. But when you talk with your kids, with your husband, your wife, your partner, with friends, unconsciously, we sell more than we think. But the most beautiful thing is that, in fact, you do not sell, but you can do it in a way that the other one starts buying you. And that's all about creating that connection. And that's something that I love and that I truly find very important. It's building that connection with other people and learning from each other, because it reflects also sometimes yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it was a great evolution from no sales at all to becoming a trainer coach in the world of sales, but very broad now. I am not sales is, yeah, can have 1,000 definitions, I think.
You also mentioned that you've been selling for a Spanish company, for a company in Belgium, for a German company, if I'm not mistaken. Did you feel that there are cultural differences in the way sales team are handled in Spain and Belgium and other countries?
Oh
Can you
yes,
elaborate a bit on
definitely.
that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I did not work with Spanish customers, but it was a Spanish company. My boss was the European, well, sales director for EMEA, European, Middle East, Africa. We were a team of a few key account managers working on European level. And the difference I noticed there between my Spanish colleagues and myself and my other Belgian colleague is, for example, when we were having a team meeting and we saw, we saw other possibilities on ideas, or we were thinking, okay, how can we do this or that we started discussing on that in a constructive way. So my colleague and I said, yeah, but what if we would do it that way or that way? And what we learned, what I especially learned, is that then I cannot say if it's for everybody, but then my Spanish colleagues were almost literally doing this. And it was like, the boss is saying this, and so we will follow. And my colleague and I were like, okay, but no, let's have a look at it. Maybe we can do it better in that way or that way. And that's where I noticed the difference. Like, okay, no, we just follow. And we were like, no, let's have a look. There might be other possibilities. The interesting experience then in now thinking in my role as sales with the customer, well, I don't think it's a secret that in Holland in general, they are more direct, and especially also in Germany. But you have a great advantage if you speak the language. I speak fluently German, so I've been working in German. I train in German also. And what we always say is it's about, you have to build that relationship step by step. You have to create that connection, and there is a barrier. That's normal. We all have a barrier in the beginning when we meet somebody that we don't know, and then we think he or she will sell something. But speaking the language is already a first step to break that first barrier, in fact. And it's adapting. It's adapting. It's going more with them in the direct still. What I learned, yeah, my experience with my Spanish colleagues is that very often it was, how should I say, yeah, many words were used to explain something, to tell something. At the same time, I worked with Dutch colleagues when I worked at Unilever. Well, it was much more direct. I worked in Paris for almost a year during the week when I worked at Unilever. Again, it was another culture. It's adapting. But the great thing is that you learn a lot about it. And you might see, maybe now I realize it's still on the wall. Meanwhile, I'm also insights practitioner. Nevertheless, if it's now insights or not, but the essence is the more you are aware of who you are, what your style is, the way you communicate, what you like, what you don't like, and the more you observe what the other one is doing, the more you can also in a more conscious way adapt to that person where needed to build connection without ignoring yourself. And I realized I did it many years unconsciously, because when then I finally discovered insights and I saw my profile, well, I have quite a lot of the 4 colors, which made me realize, okay, I can easily adapt. And when I thought about, I worked intensively with a Swiss buyer who was somebody who went very much into every detail. I really had to prepare a bunch of details and Excel files when I worked with that person. When I think of a German buyer, it had to be arranged in a few words, one, and that's it. I used to work with an English buyer. Again, it was another style. But that's what I like the most. I love to work with all kind of people, different cultures, styles, and I learn constantly.
Very interesting. I also take note that languages are very important because when you speak someone's language, it's opening. It's much easier to have a connection and to have a conversation. I hear you saying.
Yeah, it is. I noticed that strongly when I worked, for example, in Paris for Unilever. We had a structure of Belgium, Netherlands, France. I was responsible for the category of the desserts. But then literally sitting at a table with on your left side, the Dutch colleague, on your right side, the French colleague, the Dutch colleague who doesn't speak French, the French colleague who doesn't speak Dutch, but you speak both languages, and everything had to be done in English. It was sometimes difficult. It was difficult sometimes. And sometimes I really was just constantly translating between them to clarify the things and to help building that connection, because finally we had to work together.
Yeah. Let's go to another aspect that you were talking about, the marketing, where you started. you now say we realize that marketing and sales are more and more one. Even your organization that you're currently working with has just changed its name to sales and marketing
Yeah, true.
integrated. How did you, because you already have some years career, how did you see that evolve? The mindset of marketing and sales should become much more integrated than in the past. Have you seen big evolutions in that mindset, in the acceptance of that idea over the years in the different companies that you've worked? Or is it just recently that somebody got that idea from some guru and everybody's employing it since the last year? How is your vision on that?
First of all, I think it really is important that they work more together. Because first of all, sales today is not what it is anymore. A wonderful quote that one of our professors we work with says is, in the past, there was the salesperson, and today there is Dr. Google. People have much more knowledge, become more critical, it's normal. And today it's not anymore about what are all the values that you offer. It's really about understanding that customer, being a trusted advisor, the words you hear a lot, being a consultative salesperson, understanding better what exactly is it that this customer or prospect needs and what this one needs. Because you might have great added values, USPs as we call them in marketing, but they do not fit for all the customers. And what I've often see is that we come and we present all our great USPs to every customer, but it's all about what is it for them. And the better you understand what it really is that a customer needs, the better marketing can integrate it. What I still hear on a regular basis is that I hear from salespeople, those people from marketing, they don't understand what we are doing. They should come and do our job. And you hear the other way around. I used to hear it during the years that I worked in sales. Yeah, those from sales, they don't understand. We've made a great marketing plan and they do not use it. They don't sell it. And it's a great product with wonderful USPs and so on and so on. So it is important that they work more together, and you see it more and more. We had an executive networking event in March. We have it again in October. We do it twice a year with a focus on marketing and sales executives. And the topic was, the last time, from an example of materialize in a digital world, the importance of that collaboration between marketing and sales. And then the great thing is, and then we had the talks with the people afterwards, we were about 60 executives, and that they said, it is true, we know it, we see it, but still we don't do it. So it is coming step by step. I hear it from the professors. Our professors are also training in that. It's a mindset that is going on. I recently saw some posts passing by on LinkedIn from somebody I didn't know, and who wrote a text about the importance of sales and marketing together. But it takes time. It's change, step by step. But they should become one team more and more, so that they better understand from each other. Because finally, let's be honest, it's about what you're doing with and for the customer, and it's about how you can grow together. So if you in your company are not working together yet, how well can you manage then the collaboration with your customer and grow together on long term? If that's an answer to your question.
Yes, that's a very good answer. You have your background in marketing, and you educated the first years yourself in sales before you went to sales trainings, you said. Then I guess you finally found or participated in some sales training, and now you are yourself sales trainer, if I may say so. What are the trainings that you still remember from the first year that you were in sales? Were there any specific sales trainings that you still remember that you say that was, wow, this is something that stuck with me for the rest of my career?
Well, it's a great question because, to be very honest, I didn't have a lot of trainings, at least not in sales. When I started working at uni level, I started in the marketing, and then we all were trained very intensively in marketing. We had several days. So for me, some things were what I had seen in my MBA, some things were new. But then when I started in sales, I only had a training one day from Miller Hyman, working on the account planning, the account management. But to be very honest, it was not actively really used that actively. So I had my own plan. I used it a bit as an example. So what I remember there is that the importance of really having a plan together with your customer. And what I actually did, I developed myself a plan with my customers. So there was my account plan for myself, but I developed also a joint business plan with my main customers. I used to work with Compass for many years, for example. We had a joint business plan. But to be honest, for the rest, the only sales training that I had done was one day about negotiations many years ago when I worked for Natra. And then we get a brochure, and if we saw something interesting, and it was the dirty tricks of negotiation from George van Houten. He's very well known in Holland as a negotiator. He wrote 2 books, also the psychology of negotiation in Dutch. And that was a day where I was like, wow, there is so much psychology behind, but it's like 10 years ago. And then I used some elements. I started realizing, okay, it's really about what's happening in the mind and the psychology behind. And I was like, one day I'd like to know more about it. And the wonderful thing is, Tom, that many years ago, I was on LinkedIn and I saw the profile of George and I thought, you know what, I will connect. I will send a nice message. Hey, I had a training a few years ago, would be happy to connect. And he connected. And the unbelievable thing is that today I'm working now very close together with Josh because we are developing a 2-day training on advanced negotiation, which I am working out with him and with some other partners, which I will be training also in the future. And I think, well, 10 years ago, I had like 1-day training and I thought, that's interesting, but yeah, didn't do that much with it because, you know, you get a training and you move on and that's it. And now I'm working together with him and I'm from the things I've already learned and things I've read is what fascinates me the most is the whole psychology behind everything we do. How our brain is triggering us, how our brain is making it us difficult, and how at the same time we can trigger our brain. It's all about the influencing skills. And the more you understand the psychology behind, and that's what I am learning and what I want to learn a lot about more. Yeah. That's what I am most fascinated by, much more than having the account plans, the strategies, all the figures, the KPIs, which is also important, of course. They are absolutely needed.
And now, of course, you yourself are a trainer, and of course, you're hoping that people will follow training much more than you have done in your early years.
Yeah.
What would you advise an HR manager at a big company or a sales director in a big company? Why should she hire an internal trainer or send his salespeople with training, in your opinion? What's the benefit of sending people to a 8 days immersion of a sales training by several professors? Why should they do that? Why should they make that investment as a company, in your opinion?
That's a very fair question. But first of all, there are 2 things. You're talking about now here, you're talking about the 8 days. This is like the open training. You could compare it a bit with the trajects we have at Vlerik here in Belgium. So this is really it's a kind of an extra study you do. So this is there. It's why there. If people really want to enlarge their knowledge, but really learn from the practice, from how to use things, new insights, and so on. But a very important thing is, even in those days, in those trainings, but even more when you do an in-house project, is that the line managers are in the training too. So we often work then, when we work with companies, it's not just the salespeople as such, it's also the sales director who is in the training. Because training is one thing. Why should they do training? Well, we should never stop learning, I would say, because we develop, we learn, knowledge is growing more and more. And we are all, in fact, basically, we are, how should I say, we love habits. We are just human beings, and it's easy as it is, and that's it. And it's about getting out of your comfort zone, being triggered again, because you definitely know if when you're doing things for many years, you're so much into it that sometimes you don't see other possibilities anymore. And there, training can help to get other insights, to start maybe realizing, okay, that's why this and this is difficult for me. Oh, yeah, it would be great if I do it that way and that way. Okay, then I can grow again with my customer. It's about growing. It's about also motivating your people, because showing to your people, hey, I really want to give you the opportunity to learn, to grow, shows that you're also really interested in seeing your people growing. But very important is that it's not only training. You've had a training, wow, great, wonderful insights, but our brain is not our best friend. I don't have to tell you how quickly you forget everything you've learned. So when you offer your people a training project, do it on a long term and build it up step by step, but do it also with coaching in between. I work, for example, one of the companies I work with is the salespeople have like half-day trainings on topics: negotiation, advanced negotiation, the power of questioning, priority management. But in between, I've done workshops with them in small groups. Okay, what are the things you've taken out? What are your strengths? What are your challenges? Having reflection on themselves, linking it back to their job. What's the impact on your role? What have you learned from the training? And how can this help you to grow? And what do you need as a help? Where do you need support from your line manager? And it's that complete story, I would say, that is important. Training, that's just 10%. It's then the doing, which is a big part, doing and learning and practicing, but it's also being supported by your line manager, for example, or by the external training. What I also do is that, for example, on regular basis, you do some coachings, some workshops, like, okay, where are you? What do you remember? What works? What doesn't work well? Oh yeah, right, true, I forgot. It's a matter of keeping the things top of mind. And then your investment is training is really worthful. But then people grow on long term. But having just one training and saying, tick, I did it in the bucket list, it's done. Great. People come out of it, have great insights, and a few weeks later they forgot everything because nothing is done with it. So do it to help your people growing. It motivates.
That's a wise lesson, I think, an interesting lesson also. And do you have, I heard you talking about KPIs. I assume that you have some system, some way of measuring over long term how the impact of your trainings make a positive difference in that company on the sales team.
You mean then, like, looking at, okay, how do we see people evolving, for example? Yes. This is something to be very honest, that we should do even more. I talked about it with a managing partner also, and she said we should even ask more also our customers how they see evolving. Well, an example is last year I was in Norway. It was an international company within the food that had an international project, and I trained everything, for example, on the power of questioning and negotiation. Well, I had the managing director of the US, his head of key account manager of US. I had somebody from Brazil, from Spain, from England, from Norway, from 15 people from about 10 different countries. Now with the second group, they do again the whole project. I may go to Madrid now soon to do the training. And I asked the project manager of European Institute for Sales, who is leading that project, and say, what did you actually already get of feedback from the whole first group? Well, he said, the managing director said that what he sees very strongly is how people have become much better in questioning during the last year, because they have become aware of it, but they also are supported on it. There is some refresh. Our project manager is also following up. So they are forced to just keep the things top of mind. And that was a beautiful example of seeing, okay, that's the input. They question more, but they get more out of their customer, and they discover information that they never knew. Also, they are working with the customer for many years.
This is such an interesting conversation. I think we can go on for many hours.
Yeah, I see the time.
Our time is running up. Just a little thing about PSA Belgium. You've joined only recently, so
yeah.
How did you join PSA Belgium? What made you take that step to join this organization? And how do you perceive the organization in the small time that you've been a member? And would you recommend to become a member to other people that live by professional speaking, whether it's in training or sales or public speaking for groups, or even as a manager to speak to your co-workers, employees?
To answer to your last question, yes, I would definitely advise. How did I discover PSA? Well, speaking in front of a group, well, in general, let's say it like that, being busy with people, working with groups, is something I've always, I was fascinated by. I'm not a professional speaker. I wouldn't even say that. Okay, I speak in front of a group, but then it's people like 15 in a training. But I love to watch TED Talks. I love to observe, to see what the body language is doing. More and more, when I am listening to somebody, I am more aware of how much am I really listening? What is that person doing so that I am listening? I remember the whole psychology behind. I've met Bernard Moerman a few years ago when I went to Toastmasters. It was a great experience. I've been there a few times, but then there was the COVID. Yeah, and then one day I saw PSA passing by, and like, you know, a bit in my background, Ellen, in my mind, in the back, I was like, oh, must be interesting to know more about speaking and getting to know people who are speaking. But yeah, then there's a COVID and you forget again. And then suddenly I saw your post on LinkedIn. I know you also since a while already. And I was like, this is not a coincidence that this is coming up again. And there was the event last year where we could go in Mechelen to get to know PSA. And if there's one thing I said to myself the last years is I will follow more my feeling. And my feeling said, now it's time, I'll go there and I'll have a look. And I really loved it. Even though we are a small group, but great people, great experience. And as I said, I repeat myself, I love to learn from the people around me. And then after that evening, I said, you know, I will join. I'm not a professional speaker, but I understood I shouldn't be, because in one way or the other, I am busy with speaking. And that's why I decided to join PSA. And the great thing is that being a member of PSA, you become part of VSAI, so the virtual Speakers Association International, for those who don't know it yet. And I had the opportunity to follow some webinars already. And what I love is just to see them speaking, to learn from the way they speak, to observe, to get the advices. Because, yeah, as I said, I'm 43 now. I'm growing now in the world of training, building up my business there. But one day I might be speaking for bigger groups. From my experience, inspire people, give them insights. And that's why I joined. Because, what should we do without communication, Tom?
Uh-huh.
And it's so much more than the words. And that's why I like it also being part of PSA, because it's about communicating, speaking overall. So join.
Yeah,
Great group.
and as you said, it opens the network. PSA
Yeah.
Belgium
Yeah.
grants you access to PSAA, grants you access to the PSA associations in the neighboring countries, the
Absolutely.
world if you want.
Mm.
And we're part of GSFI, the Global Speakers Federation. So
yeah, it's really great that you can join VSAI also and learn a lot from that. It's lovely to be in that international group again.
Yeah.
There's no reason for not joining.
Okay, our time is up. Thank you very much, Kelly, for this very interesting conversation.
Welcome.
The time has flown so fast while we were talking. It was.
Thank you for having me in the interview. It's a great honor that you want to interview me. So thank you for that.
Okay.